I cannot believe it's been 5 years since I made this video, so here are the best recent releases from 2020 to 2024, beginning with Loop Hero, a distinctive blend of strategy and roguelite elements, but it's kind of difficult to fit cleanly in any one genre box. The world has been shattered by a lich and trapped in a perpetual loop where our hero needs to break it. You influence each expedition by utilizing a deck of cards to place terrain, buildings, and enemies along the hero's path, where the character traverses the loop automatically, engaging in combat without direct control. Success hinges on strategic placement of tiles like mountains, which enhance health, forests, which boost attack speed, as well as enemy spawning buildings, which gives the hero an opportunity to gain XP. However, crank the challenge up too much and that will result in the death of the character, necessitating a careful balance between risk and reward. It is run-based, but not exactly a roguelite, since the map remains the same, culminating in a boss fight in each area, and in between expeditions, resources gathered are invested in upgrading a base camp, unlocking new classes, cards, and enhancements, having quite the compelling gameplay loop, with sick art as well. Developer Drinkbox Studios does not miss, since they knocked it out of the park with the Guacamelee games, so when Nobody Saves the World was announced, I was excited, since it was a different kind of game, being an action-adventure title where you play as Nobody, a blank slate character who acquires a magic wand, enabling transformation into over 15 distinct forms such as Rat, Dragon, and Knight. Each form offers unique abilities, encouraging experimentation with strategic customization. By completing quests, you unlock and upgrade these forms, mixing and matching over 80 abilities, with great art and a sense of humor to boot, and while it is not the most challenging of titles, it plays very well, deserving a spot on this list. The 2020s have seen the creation of a number of genre-defining games such as Luck Be a Landlord and the symbol-building roguelite. You are faced with the challenge of paying escalating rent to your landlord by utilizing a slot machine to generate income, with the various symbols on the machine interacting with each other, and where finding the optimal overpowered combo will allow you to pay your rent for the month. You will get the ability to add more icons to your slot machine, increasing the odds of it showing up on the next spin, and have to craft your strategy around these probabilities. With over 150 symbols and 220 items, there's plenty of variety here, with increasing amounts of payable rent as the game goes along, being pretty simple in concept but wonderfully designed, and has inspired its fair share of games as well. One of the prettiest pixel art titles is Eastward, an action-adventure Zelda-style title set in a post-apocalyptic world, even if it does not look like one, where human society has retreated to underground cities. It has a dual protagonist setup of John, a diligent miner who stumbles upon Sam, a young girl with extraordinary powers, as they adventure together, exploring vibrant towns and intricate dungeons. Combat is engaging, mixing melee attacks with various special abilities, with a light dose of puzzles for variety as well. There is a cooking system in this game to create meals that boost your strength, has unique characters to talk to, and an emotional story to unravel on your journey eastward as you uncover dark secrets and mysteries of the world, wrapped up, of course, with absolutely gorgeous pixel art with an impressive amount of detail. Interestingly enough, they did also release a farm sim paid DLC spin-off named Eastward Octopia, with it doing decently well if you want to spend more time in this world, with it being a cannot miss for pixel art fans. A viral hit from this period is Untitled Goose game, in which you play as a mischievous goose whose main goal is creating as much playful chaos as possible within a peaceful village. You're completing tasks by stealing items, tricking villagers, and cleverly sabotaging their daily activities, sneaking and creeping up on them only to let out an obnoxiously loud honk, for example. There is a puzzle element here where you must think creatively to execute your disruptive plans, distracting people, scaring them, and more as you steal their stuff and run for the hills while the befuddled villager haplessly chases after you. It does have a very charming visual style as well as quirky animations, being a notable, mischievous animal simulator in the vein of Goat Simulator, and is good, light-hearted fun, with a free post-launch update adding co-op support for double the trouble. The 2020s were full of surprises, which is a good thing since indie game developers never failed to deliver, where I was certainly not expecting a grayscale psychological horror visual novel to be as popular as it is, but yet, that is exactly what Slay the Princess the Pristine Cut achieved, in which your character has but a single task, to slay and not save the princess, inverting traditional storytelling norms. She is confined in a secluded cabin, where your actions are under the assertion that her death is essential to prevent the end of the world, where this quickly unfolds into a complex, branching storyline where each decision influenced the trajectory of the narrative, leading to multiple endings. The gameplay centers around dialogue choices and actions that shape your path, with the princess's demeanor and appearance evolving in response to your decisions, introducing elements of psychological and body horror. The voice acting here is superb, playing off the princess with the unreliable narrator, gaining the Pristine Cut subtitle after a post-launch content update which added a bunch of new content, and it's remarkable how popular this game is. On the other hand, one of the smaller games which absolutely blew up in popularity is Stacklands, a card-based village building game where you stack cards to gather food, construct buildings, and battle enemies. By placing a villager card onto a berry bush, for example, you produce berry cards to feed your villagers, where selling cards earns coins which can then be used to purchase card packs to unlock access to new items and technology. It has over 300 unique cards, so there's plenty of variety, with the game being segmented into in-game time intervals named moons, after which the villagers need to eat, where insufficient food leads to starvation and death. Enemies will appear as well and engage villagers in automatic combat, but you can equip your villagers with weapons to increase their combat power, with the ultimate goal being to defeat a powerful boss. And while it looks simple, it's truly one of the best. The developer has also added post-launch DLC in Cursed Worlds and Stacklands 2000, which added new cards and mechanics, still chugging along quite nicely and is a must-play. Pseudoregalia is a 3D platformer Metroidvania where our heroine finds herself in a distorted castle within a dream realm, with this placing an emphasis on movement and exploration within a non-linear, interconnected world. You're making your way through the various areas to find keys that unlock new regions and abilities in that Metroidvania style, with there, of course, being combat as well, which is fine, but definitely not the highlight. Interestingly, the environment contains multiple paths and secrets that reward skillful navigation and keen observation, and critically will allow you to sequence break if you master the movement, getting to places perhaps earlier than you should be able to, which is part of the fun, with a sick throwback look as well. If you want a permanent list of all of these, I've created a free PDF which you can get via the link in the description below. Of the success of the Game Jam version, this developer expanded upon the core concept of this point-and-click adventure game with There Is No Game Wrong Dimension, one that subverts traditional gaming conventions and creates a series of unexpected and humorous situations. From the outset, the game presents itself as an anti-game, with the titular game attempting to dissuade you from engaging, telling you that there is no game here, so why are you clicking on the buttons? But it is this exact meta-narrative which sets the tone for a mind-blowing experience. You are interacting with various elements within the game world to solve puzzles, navigating through various game universes, each with distinct art styles and mechanics, and advancing a storyline that humorously critiques the very medium it inhabits, often breaking the fourth wall and having you think outside of the box if you want to progress. If you're not that great at puzzle games, however, don't worry, since there is a hint system to nudge you along, with this being another example of excellent voice acting which really contributes to the overall experience. Developer Team Reptile seems to be making hit after hit, where they were best known for Lethal League 1 and 2, 2D fighting sports games, but have really taken it to another level in Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, a game that in one word is cool, drawing comparisons with Jet Set Radio in terms of vibes, visuals, and gameplay. However, I have not played that game, so I have no reference points, but even as a standalone experience, this game is awesome, set in a graffiti-infused urban landscape where you are exploring using skateboards, inline skates, and BMX bikes, tagging structures with graffiti, asserting dominance over rival crews, and evading the relentless pursuit of militarized police forces. I won't get into spoilers on the story, but it is pretty insane, but the core locomotion and movement in this game just feels great as you trick your way across the city and pull off death-defying stunts, aided of course by the cel-shaded art style. The music and soundtrack are also great, perfectly composed for this title, and is one of the rare breakout 3D platformers in the modern era. Mullet MADJACK throws you into an action-packed anime-style world where survival depends on your speed and reflexes. Play as Jack Banhammer, a rebellious hero with a signature mullet, on a mission to rescue an influencer from the Robillionaires, where in this dystopian future, humans need a constant hit of dopamine in order to live. So you battle against a relentless 10-second timer which gets extended when you kill an enemy. This mechanic pushes the action as you are forced to advance and engage the enemy without trying to be stealthy or taking the coward's way around. Master a wide range of weapons, from swords to guns to powerful plasma rifles, customizing your loadout on the fly for each level, getting to choose between various upgrades at the end of each level in roguelite fashion. It has some pretty cool art as well as boss fights against giant enemies, each requiring clever tactics to defeat, which did result in a crossover with indie smash hit Ultra Kill, so if you love shooters, this is a must get. One of the longest running early access games officially put out a 1.0 release in 2024, where the many years of early access resulted in a title chock full of content in Nova Drift, a single-screen arena action roguelite that seems to have its roots in classics like Asteroids but takes it to a whole other level. For the most part, enemies are spawning in and you have to take them out, dodging their projectiles and firing your own, but the genius of this game lies in the 3 parts of the ship in weapon, body and shield to choose from, after which there are an additional 200 plus modular upgrades and super mods as well, resulting in a near infinite number of possible builds, and experimentation is where the fun comes in. This can be as varied as a ship that uses a melee space sword to cut up enemies, to a build where ramming into enemies is the strategy, or one where you become a battle cruiser from StarCraft, a sniper build where you stay away from enemies and fire off power shots, and so much more. As such, there's always something new to discover with hidden upgrade paths and challenging enemy patterns that evolve over time, making every run feel fresh, rewarding experimentation and smart thinking as roguelites tend to do, having multiple modes to play as well, and is up there among the best in the genre. Voted as the game most likely to make you cry by me is Spiritfarer Farewell Edition, a deeply emotional management life sim title in which you play as Stella, essentially playing the role of Charon from Greek mythology as fairy master guiding spirits through the afterlife. Set in a vibrant hand-drawn world, your task is to befriend, care for, and help these animal spirits fulfill their final wishes before their journey ends, sail between the islands to explore, getting off the ferry for platforming style exploration, gathering and managing resources in order to build upgrades for your ship. It also has various life sim style activities like fishing, gardening, cooking and crafting, providing a compelling gameplay loop, with it ultimately talking about life and death and letting go, with the final goodbye scenes providing the emotional climaxes in the game and will make you feel something. One of the most impressive indie games is Caves of Qud, which was in early access for the longest of time, where the developers just added and expanded the amounts of content, so much so that it became quite the impressive product when it finally released. This is your classic turn-based roguelike RPG, and is a true roguelike in the sense of the original Rogue, but expanded upon in this very unique science fantasy world, where both robots and monstrous reptiles exist. You're able to create and customize your own character, choosing from mutations and cybernetic implants from wings, 2 heads, night vision and more, selecting from 24 castes for a truly endless number of possible combinations. But if you are overwhelmed, there are 9 preset characters to select from. There are over 70 factions in the game, from apes to crabs, robots and more, which you can uniquely interact with, gaining abilities like becoming a friend to the bugs, which you can then summon in combat. True to its roguelike roots, there are many possible ways to tackle any situation, and the game's rules applies equally to you, the player, as well as the other inhabitants of the world, with insane abilities and skills as well, such as being able to clone yourself or to transport your consciousness into a door, where the game has taken all of these interactions into consideration and works as intended. While the visual style might not be for everyone, I do appreciate what they have done and it looks good to me, and it's one of those forever games that will permanently occupy a spot on your hard disk. If you love turn-based tactics titles, Symphony of War: The Nephilim Saga is a must-get, and interestingly, instead of being similar to Final Fantasy Tactics, Advance Wars, Fire Emblem or XCOM, this instead draws on Ogre Battle, having you commanding squads of units instead of single characters. It's a classic Warring Kingdoms setup, where as a recent graduate of the Imperial War Academy, you must quell a rebellion that quickly escalates into a far-reaching conflict. Combat and strategy here is on a grander scale, where success depends on outmaneuvering and outwitting your opponent. You command squads of up to 9 soldiers, selecting from over 50 different types of units, including heavy infantry, archers, cavalry, medics, battle mages and more, mixing and matching them, which is where the strategy comes in. Environmental factors such as terrain and weather conditions play a crucial role, so utilizing high ground, securing choke points and adapting to sudden blizzards or heat waves can provide significant advantages. Managing resources is also vital, as capturing towns and securing supply lines bolsters your army's sustainability and morale, with an epic 30 to 40 hour story campaign with multiple endings, as well as gorgeous pixel art rounding off the package. One of the sleekest action platformers is SANABI, an action platformer set in a cyberpunk dystopia, where you play as a legendary retired veteran equipped with a distinctive chain hook prosthetic arm, called back into service for one final mission: to ascend a mega city ruled by a corrupt conglomerate, hunting down a mysterious entity only known as SANABI. This prosthetic arm is the focus of the platforming and combat, serving as both a grappling device and a weapon, allowing you to swing across cliffs and skyscrapers, but also to grab and destroy enemies. You will have the aid of Mari, a resourceful hacker who helps you gain access to secured areas and to decipher encrypted data, with an intriguing central mystery as well, since a powerful blackout in the city caused all of its citizens to disappear, which, coupled with great action and sweet cyberpunk neon pixel art, and you have the recipe for a great game. Comedy is difficult to get right in games, but is an aspect which Tactical Breach Wizards absolutely nails, being a turn-based tactics title in which the characters are essentially wizards with guns. You are unraveling a modern conspiracy plot orchestrated by a rival group of tactical wizards, which seem to be so much more competent than your ranked tag group, but the contrast results in humor, played out through cutscenes and interactions between characters. While technically a tactics game, it might resemble more of a puzzle game in spirit, since you do have the ability to rewind time to try another strategy, meaning that it's unlike the modern XCOM games and is more narrative driven with handcrafted levels. However, the combat and abilities are fun, like zapping enemies with lightning, and has the signature element of developer suspicious developments of being able to send enemies through windows, being an excellent and funny title. I'm a big fan of the Heroes of Might and Magic series and pixel art, so it should be no surprise that Heroes Hour, a game that combines those exact two things, is my jam. blending city building, overworld exploration and combat, but where the spin is that combat is a real-time auto-battler instead of turn-based on a grid like its predecessor. You are exploring procedurally generated maps in search of resources and loot for your hero, battling neutral creeps over these, and to get XP to level up your hero while building out your castle and army to eventually take on your enemies. It has an impressive 11 factions and 22 hero classes, which is a lot, with the auto-battler combat being an awesome twist on the formula, where this added the Rogue Realms paid DLC post-launch, which essentially grouped the neutral creatures into 12 bands to select from, adding even more variety and extended the life of the game. With the last major update as of recording being version 2.8, the Homestead update on 21st March 2025, so there's plenty of post-launch support as well. A dark horse pick which players absolutely love is Library of Ruina, coming to us from South Korean developer Project Moon, which admittedly has come with their share of localization issues, but if you can get through that, there's plenty of fun to be had. This is a card-based deck-building RPG in which you manage a library that serves as the battleground for guests seeking knowledge. Each guest challenges your librarians in combat, and upon defeat, they transform into books that grow the library's collection. Not the weirdest premise for a South Korean game, believe it or not, where the combat here does take center stage. Again, excuse the localization or translation issues which might make this difficult to follow, but combat here does depend on cards and dice, with the RNG element of dice rolls playing a factor, but you will have access to effects that shift the dice rolls in your favor. There are offensive, defensive, and counter die, and emotional level, which affects abnormality pages, status effects like buffs and ailments, passive effects, and differences between melee, range, and mass attacks, as well as a clash system, so there are many variables to wrap your head around, resulting in one of the most in-depth turn-based combat systems that I have encountered. There's also gorgeous art, an almost visual novel-like presentation, and links to their previous title, Lobotomy Corporation, so the lore runs deep and is truly one of the best if you just sit down and understand the combat. Things have a funny way of coming around full circle in indie games, since there are a fair number of developers who started off as flash game developers, and you might have come across their games on the early internet in places like Congregate and Armor Games, with Madness Project Nexus being exactly that, where the Steam release overhauls the visuals and turns it into an isometric brawler. Honestly, there isn't much of a plot other than kill the bad guys, set in a gritty world where chaos reigns and combat is king. You play as a mercenary, fighting your way through hostile environments filled with enemies, using a range of weapons and gear of both melee and ranged combat options, as well as a number of abilities, which I know does sound generic, but maybe that's the point, since it's almost arcade-style action in a modern context. There are progression elements in the form of new abilities and gear, and does have some strategy to it, since you can use cover for example, but for the most part it feels like run and gun action. There's a story campaign with giant bosses to battle, but also the endless arena mode that constantly ramps up the challenge, so whether you're familiar with the original Flash game or not, this will be of interest to action game fans. I might catch some flack for putting this game here, since people absolutely adore Pizza Tower, a high-speed, momentum-based 2D platformer that is most similar to the Wario Land games, in which our hero, Peppino Spaghetti, must have enough momentum in order to smash through enemies and walls, making their way to the end of the level, hitting a button and then having to do it all in reverse to get back to the start of the level, being a masterclass in level design. While I do like it, I don't love it as many others do, but do appreciate what it's going for, since Nintendo isn't making Wario games and this does have fantastic animations as well. The story is kind of nonsensical, where Peppino is on a mission to save his pizzeria from the threat of Pizza Face, a sentient floating pizza aiming to destroy it with a nuclear laser atop the titular pizza tower, so our hero has to ascend said tower in order to destroy it. there's a high degree of mastery that you can get with this game, since I have seen insane YouTube videos S and P ranking the levels, but man, this is tough and kind of difficult to get into, but it seems like once you do, you'll be itching to perfect every level. The cool thing about indie games is that you get such a wide range of titles from developers all over the world, including ones that look all modern and flashy, throwbacks to games from ages past, and then we have ASTLIBRA Revision, a 2D side-scrolling action RPG that looks like it was made for PCs in the early 2000s, which might be true since the game took 16 years to make, but what a fascinating entry this is. It is an epic side-scrolling action platformer with RPG elements like leveling up, with special abilities, equipment, stats and so on, but people have been spending 60, 90, 120 plus hours with this game, having a long, convoluted plot that mixes sci-fi, fantasy and time travel, but is very retro and very Japanese in that sense, for better or worse. It's a hero's journey power fantasy kind of story where you start off as a humble adventurer and then end up killing gods or something, with screen-filling attack effects against titanic bosses, being very anime, which I suppose is the point and is certainly a title of note. This next release might be a little weird in technical terms, since Fear and Hunger 2 Termina is not an early access release, but yet it doesn't seem to be content complete, getting massive content updates for free, with the so-called 2.0 release targeted for sometime in summer 2025. If you're not familiar, the original Fear and Hunger is somewhat of a cult classic by now, whose legend has been propagated by various YouTube videos and streams, looking like a turn-based RPG but is more akin to a survival horror title, where you don't really get anything from combat and are not really incentivized to grind out XP or levels like in JRPGs. Rather, combat can be punishing, resulting in the loss of limbs or death of your characters, with the main plot points in the first game seeming to be heavily inspired by Berserk. This sequel is somehow even more ambitious than the first, set in the grim town of Pristine during the 1940s in a parallel twisted version of our world during World War II. You can choose from 8 distinct playable characters, each offering unique abilities and backgrounds, who have been selected to participate in the Festival of Termina, a deadly event orchestrated by the trickster moon god, where only one participant survives and is an almost battle royale kind of setup, but where certain characters have a deeper connection to what is going on. You can strategically target enemy body parts to dismember them, possibly removing a means of attack, but can also use items or even talk to these enemies for a variety of effects. There is a time progression system where the narrative unfolds over 3 days, with predetermined events occurring at different times, but where the characters are all somehow interconnected to some degree. For example, character A could kill character B in the afternoon on the second day, but if you choose to play as character A, you can choose a different course of action. So it's that very intricate spider web of character relationships and events which you need to navigate. The town harbors dark secrets of cults, demons and eldritch gods, also having multiple endings for each character, meaning that there is a ton of replayability, but do be warned that the subject matter is very grim and is definitely not family friendly. A more classic JRPG is Sea of Stars, coming to us from the developer of The Messenger, and of course, from the moment this game was first revealed, it had Chrono Trigger vibes written all over it, and I have to say, the developers have delivered on that. It follows the story of 2 solstice warriors who are tasked with harnessing the power of the sun and moon through a unique form of magic known as eclipse magic, wielding it against the dark forces of an evil alchemist known as the Fleshmancer. This has your classic turn-based combat with active elements, where hitting buttons at the right time allows you to do more damage, but does add in an interesting lock system where you must hit an enemy with a variety of damage types to interrupt or weaken enemy attacks, encouraging experimentation and usage of all your abilities rather than simply spamming the same attack. The story is alright, having some JRPG tropes, but with twists of their own, where developer Sabotage has done a masterful job linking it to their previous title, The Messenger, without forcing players to have to play the other game, rather choosing to go the Easter egg route to reward players that notice, and is a masterfully made game, also releasing the Dawn of Equinox free update post-launch, so it might be worth a revisit. I have not seen a survival horror indie game take off quite like SIGNALIS has, one with a throwback PS1 era aesthetic and a sci-fi theme and setting, in contrast with the manors or city-style locations of other games in this genre. This expertly combines atmospheric exploration, combat, puzzle solving, and resource management, in which you play as a replica, an android of sorts, stranded on an abandoned, mysterious facility plagued by disturbing visions and eerie broadcasts. Explore dark corridors, uncover disturbing secrets, and encounter nightmarish creatures on your journey. This is classic survival horror, with limited ammo and inventory space, as well as manual save points adding tension to the game, with the option for tank controls as well for even more of a throwback. The narrative is intriguing, with multiple endings and possibly unclear requirements for each, which might lead to you looking up a guide, with there being a larger ARG that required the community to come together, which I doubt would have been possible to figure out all by yourself. So it's intriguing for sure, and it's a must-play for horror game fans. Thronefall is a minimalist RTS that blends city building with tower defense, offering a streamlined experience without sacrificing depth. Set in a stylized medieval world, you are tasked with constructing and defending your kingdom against relentless waves of enemies. During the day, focus on building and upgrading structures to bolster your economy and defenses. When night falls, prepare to engage in real-time combat, directing your troops and direct action on horseback by leaping into combat. The game's intuitive controls and clear mechanics makes it accessible, while its challenging scenarios requires a degree of strategy as well. This is from developer Grizzly Games, known for titles like Islanders, with one member, Jonas Tyroler, having a hugely successful YouTube channel, as well as success with his solo titles, with this continuing their tradition of creating engaging experiences with a simple yet effective gameplay loop. In the grim, mystical world of Drova Forsaken Kin, you begin as an unknown figure in the land fractured by ancient powers. This pixel art action RPG draws from Celtic mythology, immersing you in a handcrafted open world where every choice alters the environment. There are two main factions vying for control, each with distinct values and goals, where you can choose to join either, with your allegiance shaping the narrative. Combat is fluid and strategic, relying on a flow-based system that rewards timing and adaptability. Weapons range from swift daggers to heavy two-handed axes, each offering unique combos and playstyles. Crafting and trading are essential, so gather resources to forge equipment and survive the treacherous landscape. The game's pixel art complements its deep, dynamic storytelling, where decisions have lasting consequences, and is from German indie developer Just 2D, with the game drawing comparisons to the Gothic series of third-person action-adventure RPGs from now-defunct German developer Piranha Bytes, so the legacy has been lived up to with this game. A roguelite platformer of note is Skul the Hero Slayer, where you play as a lowly skeleton warrior on a quest to save the Demon King who has been captured by the humans. I love titles that allow you to play as the so-called bad guys in traditional games, since it offers a fresh experience, with this living up to the hype and is one of the best in the genre. Each run presents new challenges as the maps shift and enemies evolve, where the twist is that our protagonist can swap his skull to assume different forms, each granting unique abilities and combat styles. From nimble archers to powerful berserkers, the variety keeps combat fresh and strategic. You can equip up to 2 skulls at a time, allowing for dynamic gameplay combinations. Boss battles are intense, requiring quick reflexes and adaptability, mixing both human-ish sized enemies as well as giant monsters wrapped up with fantastic pixel art. An excellent isometric action-adventure title is Death's Door, where crows are the Grim Reapers in this world and you play as such a character, having to deal with Grim Reaper bureaucracy as you go about your job. However, when a soul assigned for your reaping is stolen from right under your nose, you go on a grand adventure to hunt down the perpetrator to get it back. This combines tight combat with an interesting world to explore, as well as memorable characters and challenging boss fights. Armed with melee weapons, arrows and magic, you navigate through these intricately designed environments, each filled with puzzles, secrets and formidable bosses that test your skills. The game's art style is minimalist yet evocative, creating a somber yet captivating atmosphere. Combat is precise, rewarding timing and strategy over button mashing, and is Souls-light, L-I-T-E, not having a stamina meter but where you do need to dodge and cannot just spam attack. As you defeat enemies, you collect souls to upgrade your abilities, enhancing your combat prowess, and is perhaps the best pure combat focused one of these to come along in a little while. The original Rogue Legacy was what got me into indie games all those many years ago, so of course Rogue Legacy 2, the genealogical roguelite, makes the list, where each death means that a new heir takes up the quest. This sequel builds upon its predecessor with refined mechanics and expanded content. It has that same procedurally generated world filled with traps, enemies and secrets, and you choose from various classes, each with unique abilities and playstyles from archers to mages. Traits add another layer of variability, affecting gameplay in unpredictable ways, where the sequel adds more of both of these as compared to the original. Gold collected during runs can be used to upgrade your mana, providing permanent bonuses for future runs, but do note that leftover gold does not carry over, so you need to spend it all. While it looks like a 2D game, the developer has shown that it was built in 3D, meaning that they had to do some funky stuff to the camera to make it look like this, but that also allows them to amp up the visual flair of the title and is a must play. A relatively new 1.0 release is Core Keeper, where you awaken deep underground, surrounded by darkness and mystery, and have to go out exploring. Chugging along for a little while in early access, but even then, it was obvious that this was going to be huge. This sandbox survival game blends mining, crafting and exploration in a procedurally generated world. You start by gathering basic resources like wood and ore to craft tools and build your base, but as you delve deeper, you encounter diverse biomes, each with unique enemies and materials. The game features a skill system where activities like mining, combat and farming improve over time the more you use them. Combat involves battling enemies and formidable bosses whose defeat unlocks new areas and abilities. Farming and cooking are essential for survival, providing sustenance and buffs, and fishing offers a relaxing diversion with a rhythm-based minigame to catch various aquatic creatures. Automation becomes possible as you progress, allowing for efficient resource gathering and base management. This also has up to 8-player co-op support, which is a lot, enhancing the experience with shared exploration and teamwork with great pixel art as well. Wandering Sword is a pixel art martial arts RPG set in ancient China, giving you the option of either turn-based or real-time combat. You begin as a young swordsman, caught up in a deadly feud, barely escaping with your life. This near-death experience propels you into the vast open world, rich with diverse terrain like bamboo forests, mountain peaks and serene lakes. It is quite a massive title with over 75 locations to explore, each filled with secrets and challenges. As mentioned, combat is flexible, where you can switch between strategic turn-based battles and dynamic real-time fights to suit your playstyle. Master hundreds of martial arts techniques and weapons, each with unique animations and effects. Recruit companions by building relationships through quests and dialogue, adding depth to your journey. Choices matter, with multiple endings and side quests shaping the narrative and story. Of course, me being me, I do love the HD 2D style pixel art as well, with this continuing to get post-launch support and is definitely worth picking up. We did also get the official 1.0 release of Besiege, a long in development physics puzzle title where you step into a medieval sandbox where your creativity becomes the ultimate weapon. This is a construction game that challenges you to design and build siege engines to conquer various levels, with over 70 different types of building blocks at your disposal, including cannons, wheels, and propellers. The possibilities are vast and endless. Each mission presents unique challenges, from destroying fortresses to navigating treacherous terrain, requiring innovative solutions. It has an intuitive building system which allows for intricate designs, also having Steam Workshop support so you can see what others have built. The base game has quite the amount of content, but they also released a naval-themed DLC with more water-based blocks, adding even more variety, fun, and challenge to the game. My personal favourite roguelite deck builder is Monster Train, and yes, that is over Slay the Spire, in which hell has frozen over and you are defending a train carrying the last pyre of hellfire to rekindle the underworld. Each run begins with selecting 2 out of 6 unique demon clans, each offering distinct cards and mechanics, with the primary clan offering a unique hero character, and they've made every single clan feel interesting with their mechanics. Combat takes place over 3 floors of the train, where enemies spawn in at the bottom and make their way up if not stopped, so your strategy has to apply across the entire play area. As you progress, you choose routes that offer various benefits, from upgrading champions, recruiting units, enhancing cards, or duplicating powerful ones. But it's always between 2 choices, and it's not that complicated, allowing you to focus on the deck building aspect with over 250 cards and numerous artifacts. There are also Covenant level difficulty modifiers to increase the challenge as you go along, with this, interestingly, having a sequel which releases in May 2025, so it will be interesting to see where the 2 games land at the end of the decade. I love the Heroes of Might and Magic series of turn-based strategy games, growing up with 1 to 3 in the 1990s and early 2000s, which is why Songs of Conquest caught my eye, a spiritual successor of sorts but with new ideas of its own. Control powerful magicians called wielders, leading armies to build mighty kingdoms and conquer rivals. Choose from 1 of 4, 5 if you have the DLC, unique factions, each offering distinct units and magical abilities which influences your playstyle and strategy. Explore the overworld with your hero avatar and collect resources and artifacts, then go into turn-based combat on a hex grid when encountering enemies. New here is how they deal with magic, where units generate essence used to cast spells, so army composition matters. Resources are then used to build and upgrade your castle, which sprawls out into the world map with campaign, skirmish, and multiplayer support as well, but the highlight has to be the high-bit pixel art, doing amazing work with pixels and lighting, and just looks so good. Indie developer Hoppo Games did one of the more impossible things in video games, since they went from 2D side-scroller to 3D between Risk of Rain 1 and 2, and managed to nail the game feel, since this third-person action roguelite is awesome. Set on an alien planet, your objective is to survive escalating waves of enemies, blasting your way through, collecting loot and upgrades as you attempt to escape. The core gameplay loop involves locating and activating teleporters to progress through increasingly difficult stages. As time advances, the game's difficulty scales, introducing more formidable foes and bosses. You can choose from a diverse roster of unique survivors, each with distinct abilities and playstyles, with the fun of the game being in the items and how they stack and synergize with each other, allowing for powerful combinations that can turn the tide of battle. Following the success of this title, the developer actually sold the IP to Gearbox, so future Risk of Rain releases will not be indie, with members of Hoppo Games disappearing into the black box that is Valve, so I wonder what they are working on over there. In the eerie world of Inscryption, you find yourself trapped in a shadowy cabin in the woods, compelled to play a sinister card game against a mysterious figure. This game is a fusion of deck-building roguelite, escape room puzzles, and psychological horror, creating a uniquely unsettling experience. As you progress, you must acquire cards through drafting, surgical modifications, and even self-mutilation, with each choice affecting your deck's strength and your survival. The cards themselves are imbued with secrets, some even possessing the ability to speak, guiding you through the game's dark narrative. Between rounds of the card game, you are free to explore the cabin, solving intricate puzzles that unlock new cards and reveal deeper layers of the story. Over the course of the game, it evolves dramatically, shifting from the initial card battles to new mechanics and settings, keeping you constantly on your toes. Developer Daniel Mullins is the master of the meta game, having made titles like Pony Island and The Hex, and this game continues that tradition of blending genres and breaking the fourth wall, having a very creepy but super effective art style that conveys an atmosphere of dread. One of the biggest indie games of all time is Cult of the Lamb, one which blends dark humor with irresistibly charming visuals, placing you in the hooves of a lamb saved from certain doom by a mysterious stranger, now tasked with building a devoted cult in his honor. This might be a little misleading, since while the trailer does show both dungeon crawling action and base building management, the latter is in fact a larger part of the game. Delve into randomly generated dungeons, battle rival cultists, and gather resources, then return to carefully grow your settlement. You'll recruit followers, manage their faith, and make morally challenging decisions, whether you nurture your flock gently or rule with ruthless discipline. Every choice shapes your cult's future and your own sinister powers, with the vibrant, hand-drawn art style hiding some of the darker themes, creating an eerie yet endearing atmosphere, with this showing no signs of slowing down, with crossovers and plenty of free content updates, so I wonder what will be the final form for this game. I have a huge soft spot for JRPGs, having grown up with the classics, and while people have lamented that turn-based combat is boring, the success of titles like Baldur's Gate 3 and more recently Clair Obscur Expedition 33 proves otherwise, with the indie title of note here being Chained Echoes, a pretty classic one of these, set in the war-torn continent of Valendis, a land where dragons soar and mechs rumble through the skies. You guide a band of heroes across sunlit plateaus, misty ruins, and cities torn by war. Combat feels familiar yet fresh, turn-based but with a twist. The main mechanic here is the overdrive bar, encouraging you to use a variety of attacks rather than spamming the same ones over and over again, where staying in the green zone boosts your power and decreases damage taken, while getting in the red overheat zone increases TP usage and damage taken, with combat animations being quick and snappy, being a far cry from the excessively long Knights of the Round style animations from Final Fantasy. As you explore, you'll unlock sky armors, giant suits that change how you battle and traverse the world, so you can see the inspirations from classics like Xenogears and Final Fantasy VI, blending nostalgia with innovation. Instead of traditional leveling, your characters grow through skill points earned in battle, with a story rich in twists and turns, as well as drop-dead gorgeous pixel art, and is truly one of the best. One of the best made titles that is consistently on the top of the list of games which people wish they could play again without prior knowledge is Outer Wilds, a space adventure exploration game set in a solar system trapped in a 22-minute time loop. Each cycle ends with the sun going supernova, obliterating everything, but then you find yourself back where you started at the beginning of the game, and critically retaining all prior knowledge and insights gleaned from your past experiences. As a new recruit of Outer Wilds ventures, you investigate ancient ruins and celestial phenomena to uncover the cause of the loop. The entire solar system is handcrafted, with events that occur at certain times during the loop, which you need to learn about, revealing new secrets as you explore. For example, an underground city may only be accessible before it is buried by sand, or a planet's surface may crumble, exposing hidden areas. You pilot a spacecraft, navigate using a jetpack, and use tools like a signal scope to detect audio signals and a translator to read alien text, with it being all about discovery and learning. This has been deemed as a knowledge-based game where the game's world is what it is, but your own increasing knowledge about it enables you to advance further every time you play to eventually get to the ending, with the echoes of the paid DLC being woven directly into the main game itself. So if at this point you have not played it, you should probably get both and play through it together. Another recent entry is Nine Souls, a 2D Souls-like action platformer set in a world which blends Eastern mythology with futuristic cyberpunk elements, a genre that the developers aptly coined as Tau Punk. The gameplay emphasizes precise deflection-based combat inspired by titles like Sekiro, where timing and strategy are crucial. As you navigate through the hand-drawn landscapes, you encounter a variety of enemies and bosses, each requiring unique tactics to overcome. This is a story of vengeance, as our protagonist goes against the formidable rulers known as the Nine Souls, starting off as a classic tale of revenge but then goes much deeper. Exploration is key with the looping interconnected areas, but you do have a central hub and it's not exactly a Metroidvania, being a little bit more linear in structure, but still the exploration and intense combat are the key highlights. It does come to us from Taiwanese developer Red Candle Games, with some elements like character names being difficult to keep track of if you're not familiar with Hanyu Pinyin, which might make the story difficult to follow since it includes aliens, a virus, primordial roots, and a mystical space that seems to exist between worlds and more. But action for action, beat for beat, this is a fantastic title. Zelda Like a Fox Tunic is an isometric action-adventure title that looks so adorable, getting a lot of attention when it was first revealed, and following a protracted development cycle, I'm happy to report that it isn't vaporware but is an excellent title as well. You play as a small fox who awakens alone and washed up in an unknown island, and with no guidance or memory, sets off into a dangerous world to explore. Combat is swift and punishing, almost Souls-like in nature, where you have to dodge, block, and strike with precision. Stamina governs your actions, adding tension to every encounter, where being fatigued will actually cause you to take more damage, so you need to be careful. Like the Outer Wilds, this is a knowledge-based title, being a little bit meta since you find scattered pages of a manual as you explore, filled with diagrams and notes, offering cryptic hints to aid your journey, pointing you on where to go next and what to do. There are countless paths and secrets, some obscured by the fixed camera angle, so shortcuts are always there if you know where to look. Shrines serve as checkpoints, restoring health but also reviving enemies, so the bonfire equivalent in a Souls game, along with some impressive and memorable boss fights, and is very cleverly designed. Also new is Animal Well, a puzzle Metroidvania which I was skeptical of at first glance since puzzle games are notoriously difficult to have mainstream appeal, so a no-combat Metroidvania seemed like a challenge, but boy, am I glad to be proven wrong. You control a small blob-like creature exploring an interconnected labyrinth of rooms known as the Animal Well, each of which are filled with secrets. Non-linear progression is key, so you are free to poke and prod and explore, with certain segments requiring creative use of items like a slinky, frisbee, and bubble wand instead of regular Metroidvania-style upgrades. These tools have multiple uses, some not immediately apparent, which encourages experimentation and is full of those aha moments when you figure something out or luck into it, which then immediately causes your mind to think of all previous locations where this could have been useful. The pixel art is fantastic with the optional CRT filter, where developer Billy Basso made his own engine for the game, which resulted in a ridiculously small file size for a game that looks like this, down to having physics for the grass and water, and is truly a technical marvel on top of the excellent exploration and gameplay. Critically, there is a meta puzzle layer with hidden secrets, which did require the community to come together to solve, and might not have been solvable solo, where, like SIGNALIS mentioned earlier, might be a negative point, but I see this more of an added bonus rather than core to the fantastic game, getting extra points due to the nature of the game. 50 cents per game. How's that for value? This is but one aspect of UFO 50 that makes it amazing. A collection of 50 games made by a fictional game developer for a console that never existed, being a throwback to the 1980s but with modern gameplay mechanics and systems that would not have been possible on an older console. This collection spans a multitude of genres, including platformers, shooters, puzzle games, arcade action, turn-based RPG, tactics titles, an idle dungeon crawler, stealth games, and more, offering an insanely diverse gaming experience where you're free to choose. While there is a larger meta story, if you want to dig into it, about the nature of game development and the people that make games, these titles stand on their own two legs. Most importantly, each game in the collection is fully realized and is not a mini-game collection, having their own unique mechanics and depth with the ability to cherry a game if you complete a tough challenge within. Most impressively, this is the work of 6 developers over something like 8 years, with the concept first being conceived in 2016, with Spelunky lead developer and indie game legend Derek Yu being one of the main contributors, truly being a massive testament to how awesome indie games can be, and is a reflection of why I love them as well due to the variety. Ever so often, we get indie games which break containment and get out to a larger mainstream audience, an example of which is Factorial, which did kick off a wave of factory builder titles after that as well. Set on an alien planet, you need to spin up your factory from scratch, first starting with manual tasks like chopping trees and mining ores, then upgrading your tech using robotic arms, conveyor belts, and programming logic to automate the entire thing. There's a focus on efficiency, requiring you to design intricate systems with the aforementioned conveyor belts, but also inserters and assemblers to optimize resource flow. As your factory grows, so does pollution, which triggers the native creatures to attack, which you need to defend against lest they destroy your operations. Eventually, you can unlock advanced machinery from oil refineries to logistical robots and hunting automation, with the ultimate goal being to construct and launch a rocket to escape the planet. Most notably, the game's complexity and depth have garnered attention from tech enthusiasts and professionals, highlighting its educational value in systems thinking, with it having parallels to programming. This has multiplayer support, different scenarios, and even an extensive modding community which already gave it plenty of longevity, with the developer releasing the Space Age DLC in October 2024, which is a substantial amount of content and again is a genre-defining kind of game, which makes this of note. Speaking of genre-defining, how does cozy horror game sound to you? Yes, that is the exact juxtaposition that Dredge went for, coming to us from a New Zealand indie developer, with the contrast being repeated in indie games to this day. For the most part, this is a fishing title in which you pilot your modest fishing boat out to sea in a mysterious archipelago, casting lines and catching fish to sell, managing your catch with a Tetris-like inventory management system. Upgrade your vessel with advanced rods, engines, and lights to access deeper waters and rarer species. As night falls, a creeping fog envelopes the sea and your sanity wanes, introducing hallucinations and lurking horrors beneath the waves. Some nocturnal creatures are valuable, tempting you to brave the darkness, with there being a random chance of encountering an aberration fish, which is a mutated version of regular fish, which does sell for more, and where a particular NPC is extra interested in. This is the first clue that something is not quite right in this world, with the almost cosmic horror-style anomalies and sea monsters playing a central role in the story, oozing style and atmosphere, which is why it took off. Literal genre-defining titles earn their spot on this list, with the best example of which being Vampire Survivors, one that has popularized the Bullet Heaven roguelite, which has led to games like Potato, Soulstone Survivors, Holocure, Save the Fans, and much, much more, but where the original stands head and shoulders above the pack. This is a subgenre of the action roguelite, think Binding of Isaac, but where the enemies swarm you by the hundreds, and equally, you will have attacks and abilities that are able to take out all these enemies. Weapons are auto-firing and targeting, so you need to be most concerned about your positioning, having to collect experience gems to level up, and choosing from 3 upgrades every level to enhance your build. You can collect powerful weapons, which can transform into even more powerful versions under the right circumstances, with the seemingly endless levels actually having some structure and nuance to them, hiding plenty of secrets. Following its success, this spawned literally hundreds of clones aiming to capture just a slice of its popularity, but the commanding lead continues to get extended with a variety of DLC and updates, both free and paid, including crossovers with Square Enix, Konami, and more, with the game still being $5 despite all the additions and is a must-get. Joker Poker Balatro was the breakout hit of 2024, a roguelite deck builder where you use poker hands to beat ever-increasing scores, not only using straights and flushes, but also powerful game-changing jokers to do so. There are tarot cards which grant you special abilities, special effects on the cards like gold or glass cards, and even crazier combos which you can play like 5 of a kind, with insanely satisfying sound effects when your multiplier goes crazy and is crack cocaine in video game form. It is rare for follow-ups to be more satisfying and popular than the original, see Vampire Survivors mentioned earlier, but a game that managed to do so is Satisfactory, another factory builder title similar to Factorio, but in first person, which has been expanded out in so many ways. Set on an alien planet, you are doing factory builder stuff like gathering resources, first manually, then automated, advancing up the tech tree as you do so, but the scale of everything here is extra impressive as you build towards sprawling multi-level factories. Not only are you using conveyor belts, but also pipelines, drones, trains, and more, eventually constructing a space elevator so that you can send resources into space. Exploration is key as you venture into diverse biomes to discover new resources and face environmental hazards, which are located all over the planet, requiring an advanced transportation network to bring raw materials back to your central factory area. A common thing that I have seen is that as players get a hang of the game, they tend to rip out the entire early setup of the factory to optimize it, which is par for the course for this kind of game. Multiplayer definitely adds to this and looks very pretty as well, with How Long to Beat stating that the main story takes more than 100 hours to complete, and that's not even talking about a completionist playthrough, which is more than double of that and has become the title in the factory building space as far as I'm concerned. I've been a fan of Supergiant games going all the way back to Bastion, with a particular love for Pyre as well, despite that being their least popular title, so when they announced that they were making the godlike roguelite Hades, of course I was intrigued. This is a Greek mythology-themed title where you play as Zagreus, son of Hades, attempting to escape his father's realm, calling upon the assistance of his family on Olympus to grant him essentially elemental powers. Sure, there isn't as much boss variety, but weapon variety and how those interact with the Olympic runes is of note, with its main contribution being storytelling in a roguelite, where the narrative carries on through every run, having awesome combat, sick art, and excellent voice acting and music, where it got its hooks deep into me ever since early access and is an absolute no-brainer. Watch this video for more of the best indie games.